how do I serve God not only with my church life, right, but also with everything else? So here's the deal. I guess first off, what do you think of when you think of serving God? Like, what are some things that just pop in your head? Evangelism. Okay, awesome. What else? Worship. Serving others. Okay, was that you that said that? Awesome, thank you. Yeah, serving others. That's a great answer. What else? What else do you guys think of?
Appropriate work ethic.
Appropriate work ethic. Okay, awesome. All right, anything else? One more. We'll just take one more. What do you think of when you think of serving God?
Good behavior.
Good behavior. Okay, awesome. These are all great answers. And I think these all do fall into the category of serving God. But I think when I was a teenager, what I thought of when it came to serving God was the way we serve God is we hear, believe, repent, confess, be baptized, and live faithfully. Okay? And once you get to that live faithfully thing over here, for me in my teen years, it was like, what does it look like to live faithfully? And I guess the way that I heard it taught from where I was from and kind of how I grew up was the way that we live faithfully is we show up to a building 3 times a week. We do the right things there. We do communion. We sing a cappella. We take the Lord's Supper, like all this stuff. And on a good day, I'll volunteer to do some of that stuff, right? And that's how we live faithfully. Okay. And I guess that's where the biggest clash came from for me, because it's like, okay, we're doing all of this stuff, but I also have this magic thing that I'm getting into as a teenager. It's like, okay, well, does that have anything to do with this? I also played basketball. That was a huge passion of mine, And so it was like, well, does that have any place in the kingdom, right? And then we get into the questions of like, where am I going to go to college? Who am I going to marry? Those things. And it's like, God, what is your will for my life, right? And am I doing this whole thing right, or do I just need to forget this stuff and just go become a monk or something? And so I want to talk about this. I've had a lot of people pour into me on this issue, which is one reason I'm so passionate about it, and one reason why I love talking to students about it. Because one thing I want you guys to know is that we're all made different. We all have different gifts, and God can use your gifts in beautiful ways if you will let Him. Okay, so what I want to do to start out this morning is I want to look at the very beginning. Okay, there's something in Genesis chapter 1 that I never saw until I was in college, and it just wrecked me. Okay, so Genesis chapter 1, starting in verse 27. Can somebody read that for me? And by the way, I just want to tell you guys this. It's kind of funny. I had an awesome PowerPoint set up for today, but I forgot my computer charger at home. And so, anyway, you can imagine all of these verses and all these points, on a screen, great graphics, all this stuff. But anyway, yeah, you can imagine that for me. I really appreciate it because we're just going to have to just work around that today. Anyway, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. Somebody read that for me.
So God created man in His own image, and in the image of God He created him. Male and female He created them.
Awesome. So God made man in what? In His image. Okay, what does that mean? This is a huge question. Capacity to reason. Okay, that is how I grew up thinking about this, right? And that's how I was taught it. And I think that there is something about this that is that. Okay, but I think there's a whole other side to this that is so much bigger. And what we have to do in order to understand this is we have to time travel a little bit, and we have to ask the question: okay, what would it have been like for an ancient reader, the original readers of the Bible, to hear this phrase, God made man in His own image? Okay? So just for a second, what I want us to do is time travel. Imagine a beautiful slide that has this time travel. Okay? All right? So what I want to do really quick, how many of y'all are familiar with the Ten Commandments? Okay, most of us in this room, right? How many of y'all can just quote off the second commandment? It's the second commandment.
And no other gods before me.
Okay, that's one.
Okay.
The second one is almost exactly like it, just worded a little bit different. No graven images. Okay, notice that word. What is that? What was the last word you said? Images. What was an image back then?
Picture.
Okay, that's what we think of, right? In 2023. But back before cameras, back before anything like that, what was an image?
A drawing.
Okay, not quite. Yeah, it was a statue, right? It was a statue. That's what an image was. Okay? So here's what I want to do. I want to kind of give you a picture of maybe what it would have been like to be in a world full of those kinds of images. Okay? I need 2 people to help me. Okay? Can I get 2 volunteers? Okay, you right here, you in the back. You guys can come on up here.
Do you bring our notebooks?
No, you're good. You can leave your notebook. Okay, we're just gonna role play really quick. Okay, I need one of you guys to be the king in this story. Okay, so which one of y'all wants to do that? You can. Okay, and what was your name? Jude. Jude. Okay, so we have Jude the king. Okay, Jude, can you just stand over here for me? And what I need you to do is you get the fun job. I need you to be like some dirt or some clay or something like that. Just like pretend to be that right now. Okay. Sure. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. Okay. All right. And go. Okay, what was your name? Adela? Adela. Okay, awesome. Like Adele, but with Okay, awesome. Awesome. Adela. All right, so we have King Jude and we have Adela. Okay, Jude, here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine that this whole church building, okay, is your kingdom. All right? Because you're a king, right? You have a kingdom, you rule over this space, okay? So this whole church building is your kingdom, right? Okay. But the problem is you are one guy, right? And you can only be in one place at a time. But you need everyone to know who is king of this whole church building. Okay? So now you're in this random region. I don't know what region do you want to call this room.
We shall call it Alberta.
Alberto. Okay, you're in the region of Alberto. Okay? And your palace, we're just going to pretend, okay, is the auditorium. Okay, so that's where you live. So you don't live in Alberto. Like, these are the citizens of Alberto, okay? You guys play a part in this story, too, okay? You need these people to know that Jude rules over Alberto, okay? So how are we going to do that? What we're going to do is we're going to build an image, okay? All right, so what I need you to do is I need you to build an image and make it look like you, okay? You've got some clay here, all right? So you can just form this clay however you want to look just like Jude, okay? You got like 20 seconds. Ready, set, go. Hands in your pockets. Slumped over. Just like me. Okay, perfect. Are you done? Or is there some other finishing touch? Okay. Okay, so now what Jude has just done, King Jude has just done, is he has just made an image in his own likeness. And the reason he did this was because he wanted all of y'all to know that this is Jude's space. The region of Alberto, right? Yes. Is Jude's space. Like, this is where Jude rules and reigns. And so he made this image to look just like him, so that when you see the image, you immediately know this is Jude's space. Right? This realm is ruled and reigned by King Jude. Okay, if you got that, say got it. Got it. Okay, you guys can go sit down. Can you give it up for them helping out? Okay, so this is the role of images in the world of the Bible, right? Like ancient kings, what they would do is all over their kingdom they would set up images so that when people saw the image, they would know this is this king's space. This is who we're serving. This is like all of those things. Okay? That's the world that people were living in. Another layer to this was the phrase image of God in the ancient world was used to refer to the kings. Right? Because the kings were people that were ruling on the God's behalf. Okay? And so, in other words, if you're an ancient reader, remember, the Bible wasn't, or Genesis was not given to Adam and Eve. This was written later, right? And given to people a few years later, when they're coming out of Egypt and they're asking the question, like, who is this God that brought us out of Egypt? How do we worship him? How do we serve him? All this stuff. So they're reading this story coming out of a culture that is full of images of the king. And they read this phrase, so God made man in his own image. In the image of God, he made him. Again, so we're time traveling here. We're in this mindset of images back then. Images were things that represented the king, or the ruler, or the pharaoh, right? They were set up so that people knew who the king was. And so from the very beginning, we're told that this is who humans are in reference to God. But humans aren't made of clay or stone like the other images, right? They are living, breathing, moving, working images of the one true king. And not only that, but we also see similar things about how they were images, how they were representatives of the king, okay? So if I say the word representative, what do you think of? Like, how do you represent something? You said something back there. I didn't hear it.
I said House of Representatives.
Okay, House of Representatives. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's good. What do you think of though if you have to go represent something?
Speaking on behalf of.
Okay, speaking on behalf of, yeah. So like you hear something from somebody, you're gonna go represent it to someone else, and so you're speaking on behalf of them, but you're gonna say basically what they say, right? And that's how you do it. Okay. What else would you do if you were representing somebody?
If you're playing like a sport and you gotta like play like for the team.
Okay. Okay, yeah, you're representing your team. Okay, or like, you come under like a name, right? Like where I'm from, the Razorbacks are a big deal, okay? I don't know how y'all feel about that. But you play for the Razorbacks and now you represent the Razorbacks, right? You get put on the team, you're given a jersey, like you're part of this now, right? No matter where you go, you now represent the Razorbacks. Okay? So yeah, that's good. I think maybe where I'm at with the idea of representing something, the most basic way that I think I can say it is you represent something by whatever you're representing, you look at what it does, and then you just copy it. Like you just do more of it, right? Like that's the best way to represent something. Is you literally just mimic it. Okay. So let's look at it through the lens of Genesis 1 really quick, and then we gotta get moving because we are running out of time. But what does God do in Genesis chapter 1? Like if you're picking up the Bible for the first time, you've never read the New Testament, you've never read any of the Old Testament, like literally fresh reading Genesis 1, what do we see God doing?
Making the world.
Making the world. He's being creative, right? He's speaking things into existence, which is crazy, and then he gets down to day 6, and he says that he creates man in his own image. Okay? Now, I want you to notice the very next phrase after God makes man in his own image. It says in verse 28, and God blessed them. Okay, first thing that God does to humans, he blesses them. Okay? That's super cool. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Okay, basically have kids. Okay? Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And subdue it. Okay, what does that word mean? Subdue. Okay, control. Yeah. Definitely hints of control in this. We think of that especially in like military, right? They go to subdue something, we're taking control of it, right? Okay, so good. What about right here though? Like no military power. You just have humans have just been put in this world. So how are they going to subdue it? Okay, populate it. I think that's more like the be fruitful and multiply side of things. I think this subdue thing is a little bit different.
Moves about.
What is it?
Moves about.
Moves about. Okay. Yeah. So maybe if we combine both of these, we're right where we need to be. Okay. So subdue is like a creative word. It's like this word of like you're going to envision something and then you're going to make it happen. Okay, it's used a lot in like gardening language. You know, you have like this plot of land, and you can envision a garden. But what you have to do in order to make the garden happen is you have to get down and work it. Like you got to work the ground, right? Because what does the ground do if nobody works it? It just goes wild, right? And so you have to subdue it. Like you have to enforce your will upon the ground in order to make something happen. Okay? Does that make sense? Like envision something, make it happen. Okay? And then it says, and have dominion. Huge word there. What does dominion mean? What do you think of when you think of dominion? Total control. Okay? Okay? But also, who do you think of when you think of the word dominion? Like have dominion. What kind of person do you think of? A king. What did we just talk about?
You.
Right? Like God made man in his own image, and he told him, have dominion. Like, you rule this on my behalf. Okay? So in Genesis 1, we see God creating. He creates man in his own image, and then he basically tells him, look, be creative. Like, make life happen. Take what I've given you and make something out of it. And this is where we see humans in Genesis chapter 1. This is the intention of humans. And if you don't believe me that this is the intention of humans, turn to the last page of the Bible and you'll find that what humans are doing at the end of the Bible is they're ruling and reigning with God forever. This image of God stuff is huge. And it's something you can trace through the whole Bible, okay? So what does this have to do with anything? We kind of got to fly through the rest of this stuff. I'm gonna zip through and try and get really practical with you guys within 10 minutes, okay? So I want to talk about, really quick, Exodus chapter 3. Okay, this is the burning bush scene. Are we familiar with this scene? Do I need to talk about it very much? Okay, so Moses sees this burning bush. It's like this weird, yes, Moses sees this burning bush. It's like a weird scene, but this is where he talks to God, okay? And so I'm just going to read verses 9 and 10 really quick. This is in the context of God talking to Moses from the burning bush, okay? He says in verse 9, and now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Okay, here's the question I have for y'all. God has just told Moses, I want you to go to Egypt because I'm going to set the people free. Okay? Question. Why does God need Moses?
Help these people.
Okay, but can he do it without him?
Yes.
I mean, think about it. We're talking about the God of the universe. The God that we just talked about who spoke things into existence. The God we know that can do miracles and do all kinds of incredible things that we can't even think of. The one who can see further in space than we have even gone so far. We're talking about that God. And he's talking to this guy named Moses, and he says, I want you to go to Egypt because I'm going to set the people free. Why does God need Moses?
Land always used man.
Exactly. This is huge, y'all. The way that God works on the earth is through humans. Okay, this is huge because a lot of times we pray for God to do stuff, and we pray for God to do stuff like he's not going to do it through you. But the way that God works in the world from the beginning of time all the way till now is when he wants to make a move, he finds a person who fits what he's looking for. And just an interesting thing here, the beginning of Exodus starts with Moses having a lot of setbacks in his story, right? Just a lot of crazy things happen to him. Not going to list them, but if you want, you can go read the story. Isn't it crazy that Moses' setbacks were actually his setup for what God had planned for his life? And so God calls this man named Moses. He said, I want to do something in the world. So he finds a man who has the setup to go and do this thing that he wants to do, and he sends him. And in the story of God freeing people from Egypt, sometimes all Moses had to do was literally just do this. And that's it. But God still was going to work through a human. Okay? So this is huge because, again, this is how God rules the world. God sets up people. He doesn't set up solid objects. He sets up people who will represent him and go out into different places and do what he does. Okay, so what does this have to do with how do I serve God with my life? First things first. One thing that we have to start thinking about is we got to start thinking about serving God beyond the doors of the church. Because isn't it crazy that we spend so much of our time focused on 3 hours of the week whenever it comes to this idea of how do we serve God? Like we literally just focus on 3 hours of the week. And I'm not saying that 3 hours is not important, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying we're missing out on so much if we're putting God in that kind of box. And so the question becomes is how do we, with the rest of our week, with our interests, with our hobbies, with our relationships, with all of these things, how do we serve God? Okay, this is a huge question, and I can't speak directly to your life because I know everybody in this room has different interests, different hobbies, different setups, different setbacks. If you want to honestly ask the question, how do I serve God with my whole life? What I would encourage you to do is go find a mentor, somebody that is close to you and somebody that can speak directly to your situation and your circumstance. Okay? We have a lot of people in this room who are very different, and I can't do that. But what I want to do is I just want to kind of give you a guideline, okay? Really quick before we close, because I know we just got a few minutes. I need 5 people to help me out with this.
Can it be the same two that
One.
before?
Let's try and get different people. Let's let some other people get involved here. Okay? All right, we got 1. You come on up here. 2. Can I get 3 more people? All right, 3 more right there. And then I need 1 more person right here. Awesome. All right, if you would, I'm going to have you guys stand in the back in kind of a single file. Just kind of like this, okay? All right, perfect. And I'm going to give all of you a post-it note. You just hold it up against your chest for now, okay? Don't let anybody see it. You're not even going to look at it, okay? Just hold it up against your chest. And make sure I'm using that one, okay? All right, just hold it up against your chest. Perfect. Hold it up against your chest. Hold that up against your chest. And then hold that up against your chest. Okay, perfect. All right, so, and by the way, just really quick, what are y'all's names? Ellie, Jose, Blake, Matthew, Sarah. Okay, awesome. Can we give it up for them coming up really quick? Okay, awesome. Here's the deal. We're going to start with you, okay? If you want, you can turn in your Bibles to Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Okay? I want to share this passage through means of illustration. Okay, and I want to start with this word right here. Okay, can you go ahead and show everybody your word? This word. Okay, then. What does then mean? Okay, like afterwards. Okay. Normally it means whatever comes before you can have, or no, sorry, whatever comes after you can have, but you got to pay attention to what comes before the word. Okay. So we have the word then. Okay, we're gonna get to you guys in a second. Okay. But we're gonna start with the end. Okay, so we have then. So we need to see what comes after the word then. Okay. Can you go ahead and turn your first word around? God's will. This is huge. All right, this is what we all want. Let's just be real. How many of you guys want to know God's will for your life? Like, God, what is your will for my life? We ask this question all the time, right? And it doesn't matter what age you are. Like, as a teenager, you're wondering, like, what is God's will for my life in terms of, you know, where am I going to college? Who am I going to marry? You know, if you're a 7th grader, how much Axe body spray do I need to wear today? You know, right? What is God's will? But as you get older, you start asking different questions, like, God, what is your will in my marriage? Or like, you know, all kinds of questions. It never stops, right? We're always looking for God's will in our life. Okay? All right, so here's the deal. We have this word then. We have this word, or we have God's will. This is what we want. Okay? But we got to focus on these things first before we can get to God's will. Isn't it crazy that Romans 12, verse 1 and 2 says that we can know God's will for our life? Okay? It says we can know it, but we got to pay attention to what's before the then. Okay? So let's look at the first thing. Living sacrifice. Okay? Let me just read along with this while we're doing this. Romans chapter 12. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living sacrifice. Okay? We're running out of time, so I'm just going to kind of fly through this. This is so interesting because these two words are actually contradictory. Because what do you think of when you think of sacrifice? Death, right? So it's like you need to be a living death, almost, right? Right? Basically, what this refers to, at least where I'm at with it, is this is about emptying yourself out and letting God's desires be your desires, or sacrificing everything that you have to the purposes of God. And you think about it, that's what an image would do, right? If we're representing something, then that means that I have to lose my own self-interest and be filled up with what I'm representing. Okay? So a living sacrifice, okay? What's the next thing? Don't be conformed. This is the hard one, right? Because we live in a world that does make it all about me. We live in a world that doesn't think like Jesus thought, right? And so it's so hard not to be conformed. But through the power of the Spirit, we need to be transformed. Okay, so these are the three things, right? Living sacrifice. Don't be conformed. Be transformed. Then God's will. That's when we can know what God's will for our life is. Whenever I empty myself, whenever I'm not conformed to the patterns of this world, but I look directly into the eyes of the Savior and ask the question, what is your will for my life? And let Him transform me into His image. That's when I will begin to see what is God's will for my life. Okay? Okay, one last thing. You guys can go sit down really quick. I know the bell just rang, so we got to get going. But I want to end with one last thing. One last thing is, guys, don't limit what God can do through your life just to what you do in a building. Okay? As you guys are out and about, I would just encourage you to pray for one, but also ask people who are spiritually minded, who are living out this thing of being a living sacrifice, not being conformed. Ask them, what do you see God doing in my life? How can I serve people through what I'm doing? Okay? For a long time, I thought of God's will as a who, what, where, or when. But the more that I'm learning about it, I think it's more of a how or a why. It's not so much like God has one college picked out for you, and if you don't go to that college, then you're not walking with God's will. It's more so like whatever college you choose to go to. For one, why are you going there? But also, how are you going to represent God while you're there? And I think if we start thinking through that framework, it'll start opening up our eyes to how we can serve God in our lives. Okay? Again, guys, I appreciate you guys. We need to start heading